Interviewers love to ask this question, and I don't blame them, because this one problem demonstrates your understanding of scoping. It lets them know if you understand the difference between let and var when declaring a variable in JavaScript. It tests your understanding of JavaScript closures, which is actually what this video is going to be about. It tests your understanding of execution order, and if you're able to predict outputs when given a function or when given a block of code. Closure is one of those core concepts that have a fancy name and an abstract definition, and it makes it sound more scary than it really is, because all closure is saying is that, like, there's a function, let's call our function parent for instance, and within this function we have declared a variable. Let's declare a variable a, for instance. Let's assign a value of 1 to it, and then within this function there's another function called child, for instance, right? All closure is saying is that we're going to have access to a, this variable that is actually declared within the parent inside the child, even when the parent is done executing. So even when the parent's execution is done, it's dead, it's removed from the call stack, when we invoke child, we're always going to have the value of a. That's all closure is. To demonstrate that, let me return child, and then here let's declare a constant. Let's call my parents, and then let's invoke parents. At this point, the parents function is done executing. Now, if below it we invoke child, I'm sorry, it's supposed to be my parents. If below it we invoke child, you can see that what's actually printed is the value of a. So although a does not exist within the function of child, it still holds the reference for a from the parents as long as it lives. That's all closure is. Now let's come back to this problem. If you said the output was going to be 3, 3, and 3, you would be right. First of all, where is the closure in this particular code block? It's here. This is the log. What's the variable that we are referencing? The variable is going to be the value of I. Now, what's actually happening here? Remember, the parent function runs and holds the value, and then whenever the child variable needs to access I, or needs to access this variable that is within the parent, it can always access the value, right? So what's actually happening here is that, first of all, our for loop runs variable I, it increases, it gets increased until the value is now 3. Now we've already queued our set timeout, and this value is going to look up the value of I once we're at 100 milliseconds. So first of all, this loop runs quickly and ends, and we have variable I now equal to 3. Now when it's time for the set timeout to run, it looks up the value of I, right? What's the value of I at this point? 100 milliseconds later, it's 3, so it prints 3, and then it's queued up 3 times because we started at 0, right? So each set timeout queue runs once, and then that's why we have 3, 3, and 3. Does that make sense? Why isn't this code output 0, 1, and 2 like you'd expect at first glance? That's because for this particular loop, we've declared the variable using the var keyword. And in JavaScript, the var keyword is function scoped. What this means is that the I value is shared. That means it's like actually literally writing variable I here, and then having all this value, take like the value of I is always going to reference this one that is like in the outer scope, right? If you wanted to have like 0, 1, 2 printed out, you would use the let variable. Why? Because this is block scoped. So for each time the loop runs, we have like when I is equal to 0, the loop runs as 0, and this console.log I references that first block, right? And then it gets that value as 0, the same for 1 and the same for 2. I hope that makes sense.